Welcome to Powered by Authenticity. We're so happy to have you here tonight, heading into the holiday week, and just looking forward to connecting with family and friends. And speaking of friends, I have just a wonderful person who, after the first time I spoke with her, I was like, oh, she needs to be my friend. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with Julie Whitten this evening. Julie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. I felt the same way. I absolutely do. I wish we were geographically a little bit closer, but I will get up to see you at some point.
I know we're so close. If you make it to Rochester, let me know.
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. Well, how about you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a Central New York girl. I was born in Central New York, went to college at Ithaca College, and that's where I live right now with my husband and my two girls. Mom of two teenagers, or a tween and a teen, and a dog. And I've spent the last 25 years in kind of corporate America, leading communications, change management, and transformation.
That's awesome. Ithaca is beautiful.
They say it's gorgeous, but I'll tell you, I really didn't experience the gorgeous part until COVID, because then I had lots of time to explore all the hidden gems of this area.
Yep. It's funny. COVID was such a time for so many, but there were some positives, such as getting out and about and finding the beauty and having time to kind of walk around and have that little bit of space that we all needed.
Absolutely.
Uh, well, I'm so excited that you're here. I can't wait to talk about your journey that you're currently on. But before we get into that, we'd like to do a little icebreaker. And here at the podcast, we happen to think that food is one of the best connectors we have. And so, with the holiday this week, do you have a favorite holiday side dish, an unsung hero of the side dishes, if you will?
I love that question. I'm certainly a food girl as well. And I had to laugh when I saw it too, because my initial go-to was stuffing. Who doesn't love stuffing? But I'm actually gluten intolerant, so stuffing's not the same. So I feel like I had to pick a runner-up, and I went with butternut squash, because I was like, what says Thanksgiving more than butternut squash, the vibrant color of it? You're eating something that's good for you. You can make it not so good for you if you put some other stuff on it. So that was my pick.
I love that. I love squash. It's like one of my favorites. So, all right, awesome. Hey, producer Ken, how's it going tonight?
Howdy, going good?
All right, what's your favorite side dish?
I like the most underrated side dish, which is green bean casserole. Go to.
I knew he was going to say that. I'm going cranberries. I happen to love the fresh cranberries, grind them up with some oranges, and they're delicious.
Nice. The big question in my family is always, are you a mixer or not a mixer, right? So do you allow your foods to mix, even though they're going to mix in your stomach, or do you keep them separate on the plates?
That's a great question. I'm a mixer. Ken?
Not in the slightest. Nope, keep them separate.
I'm a mixer too.
Gravy can go on everything, but everything else needs to stay separate.
Love it.
I know the plate usually looks like a train wreck by the time you get done with it. Everything's
I know, right?
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for letting us get to know you a little bit. Squash is a great answer, and I love that. Okay, so you've recently gone out on your own. So you've had a career over the past 25 years, but you've recently started your own company, Julie Whitten Consulting. Is that correct?
It is. It is. Yeah. I think it was a series of unfortunate or fortunate events that led me here, which could be either, but found myself laid off twice within a year. And the second time really made me want to think about doing something different. And I had a couple friends that had gone the consulting route, and one in particular called me when she saw my little LinkedIn flipped to open to hire. And she's like, I want you to think about trying this. I'm going to build you a website. She was in marketing. It was like 2 days after it happened. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, okay. And I had happened to be speaking at a manufacturing summit the next week. And she's like, you can have something to show your clients, future clients. We'll get it up over the weekend. And I don't know, it just kind of grew on me. And then the more people that I spoke with, it seems to be pretty common, especially kind of when you get to a certain level in your career, wanting to try something like this. So here I am.
That's amazing. I had the same issue, right? Like I was part of a very large consulting firm, C-suite, and got that call that, oh, sorry, we're going different direction for your whole department. And it's like, what do you do? And there's that moment of panic. And then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, what am I going to do now?
No, I mean, it's funny because I write about this a lot. I write a series of articles on LinkedIn called Put Your Big Girl Panties On, and I'm sure we'll get to that in a second. But one of the things I've been writing around a lot is within the past year is career grief. And I think that there are so many people that are in this transition right now and the state of the world the way it is. But a lot of people don't talk about the emotional journey that you go through, that it's part of your identity, that there is some guilt and shame associated with it. And I don't know, I've just found and learned over the course of the last year that this is something that we need to normalize, that people really do need community to heal and connect and kind of find their next opportunity. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed writing about it and meeting some new people along the way.
Yeah. And, I think too, first of all, I think if anybody's going through it right now and they're listening to this, if you're feeling that moment of grief or shame, it's not on you.
Yeah.
And, put that aside and, reach out on LinkedIn or whatever you need to help. But I think the other thing that happens too is, especially right now, do we think about having a side hustle? We have full-time jobs, but is it to the point where people have to start thinking about what's my fallback plan if this happens, and do I start to put that into place, just so if that does occur, you automatically have something to fall back on and try to grow with.
100%. I think a lot about from a change lens, of like, how can you create stability for yourself during times of uncertainty, right? And that can, there's no black or white answer to that, right? That can come in, you can create your side hustle and kind of have that as your fallback, or you can create a new way of working forward. It doesn't have to be that typical 9 to 5 corporate life that many of us know and probably used to love. But creating that stability can be done in a multitude of different ways.
Yeah, I agree. And so we kind of jumped right into that. For what's the focus of your company? So what is your consultancy based on?
Yeah, so companies really hire me to help lead their people through change, and that means a lot of different things to a lot of
Yeah.
different people. But basically, there's different types of change. It could be process, technology, people with reorgs, cultural integrations with mergers. And I really help look at the people side of those types of transitions and do strategic planning around what could that look like? If it's a change you can co-create together, how do we involve the people that are catching and receiving the change? What are some of the potential resistance or barriers that you might face? And then how are you going to communicate it? How are you going to train people to the abilities that they need? And how are you going to measure effectiveness? So yeah, really kind of focusing around different types of challenges, but and certainly open to. I'm not married to any sort of industry, so I've got experience in most recently manufacturing, but as well as kind of food and beverage arena facilities, and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been great so far. I've definitely had the opportunity to put out a few proposals, and I have a current client that I'm working on right now, and it's only been 6 weeks, so I'm super excited.
That's fantastic. That's like great growth.
It's funny because it's nerve-wracking and exciting at the same time, right? And you have those moments, I think, when you're out on your own of like, is this going to work out? And then it kind of all comes at once. So it is emotional roller coaster, but I always say sometimes we have to change manage ourselves. So what could
Yeah.
be a better example of that than this, right?
Yeah, that's very true. And I think it's interesting from the change management perspective. When you're part of a layoff, what people I think that are left behind, there's grief for them that
Yes.
needs to be managed, and a change management component to those people who are left behind that were not part of the layoff. And, I think that's got to be part of the journey when organizations are doing that reorg of we've got to think about how to help those that remain here. Any thoughts on that?
Lots. I've been on both sides of the fence, as I'm sure you probably have as well. And it's funny, you never forget your first time as a survivor. I'll say it that way. When it's kind of, for me, it was earlier on in my career, but having that happen was, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to see the different challenges that people were facing, and then kind of it almost it gets treated like somebody has a disease or an illness that you want to reach out to somebody, but you don't feel comfortable and you're not sure what to say, and it's just awkward. So I do think that there's lots of latitude for us to help organizations on that side, as well as kind of help the folks that are kind of displaced. And I've seen that kind of take shape and form in many different ways, where it's immediate, where it's drawn out. There is no good way, in my opinion. But honestly, I feel like I'm on a mission to normalize that. I've tried to write pieces that are from both perspectives, just to help educate people. And I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people within the last couple of weeks that have been, again, on both sides of the fence. So I think it's really good perspective for us to just consider both sides of the
Yeah.
equation.
Yeah, I think so. And I think a lot of times leadership gets so caught up in the actions that they have to take that they do not think about how to manage the post reduction in force, post merger, what it means, that people component. I think a lot of the times that gets lost in the fact that they've had to probably make a difficult decision or somehow come to where they're at. But I do think that it's such an important piece to be able to support team members who remain there, along with helping the offboarding as easily as you can for the other impacted employees.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, the biggest one that I see is like the work that's left behind, right? And there's examples that I can think of in my career where there's been a lack of clarity around, does that work continue? Who takes on that
Yeah.
work? Does the person that's left behind are they taking on more work? So it's, I think it's a time where things are unstable and people are really seeking clarity. And then, I think the worst case scenario is people are reaching out to folks and, okay, so and so is no longer here, right? So that sends a message to people, and certainly creates a very tumultuous environment for the folks that are left behind.
Yep, I agree. Well, on a positive note, you're on now a great entrepreneurial journey. So, something that could have been very negative has turned into something I think it's going to be very positive for you. Just having the opportunity to speak with you and hearing how passionate you are about your change management consultancy, which I think is amazing. And there's not enough of that in this industry, or any industry, actually. I think I look at large projects, and change management always is kind of the last thing that people are thinking about in training.
Yeah, and sometimes not at all, right? I think there's a lot of confusion around what change management is and isn't. And I think folks that do think they know what it is jump right to communications and training, because that's their frame of reference, which absolutely makes sense. But, a couple of things I've learned is the amount of socialization that it takes for a change to go well is solely underrated. When you look at why things fail, why projects and initiatives fail, the top two, the number one is the why. So people don't understand why the change is happening. And the second one is lack of active and visible sponsorship. The why is a really interesting one to unpack, because, and I was just having this conversation with a project team of mine earlier today, the individual why and the organizational why are most likely two different things, right? So organizations probably looking for future growth, better profitability, cost savings, stability in their workforce, both probably safety. And then when you look at the individual, they're really looking for what we were talking about earlier: stability. They're looking for their future. They're probably looking for safety. So there's definitely overlap between the two. But when mistakes I've seen that happen, when you go to talk about this, when there's messaging planned, a lot of the corporate speak is around, we're going to be more profitable, we're going to be more efficient, and we're saying we have to say the why, and organizations think they are, but they're not telling the right why, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. That does. And I've actually seen projects that honestly were successful have the appearance that they were not, just because of the why being missed. When my world is technology, so a lot of times the technical benefits do not equate to what the operational benefits are. And so when you don't pass through what that operational benefit is, they don't understand the why behind what they've done. And honestly, it was something that was broad and successful, again, from a tech perspective, felt like a failure to the business.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like you see this a lot with big ERP implementations, right? Where they're, moving from paper to more a digital environment. And the steps that somebody on the front line needs to take might be longer than what they were doing before, even though
Yeah.
it was on paper, but it gives the organization better decision making capabilities. So that's really not a sell to the employee for them to do more work, right? And eventually, and we can talk about resistance in a minute, but there's going to be workarounds, right?
Yeah.
Of what do I do with this information? So I really think the solution is really coming to understand values, similar values with the individual and organization, and how do you message that so that the person that's catching and receiving the changes is benefiting from it in some way.
Yeah. And you say ERP, and all I could think of are flashbacks to some of my SAP implementations that I've done. And I may not sleep tonight.
I'm so sorry. I know it's like if you know, you know, right? Yeah, it's so interesting. Those are big installations,
Yeah.
lots of stakeholders, lots of change impacts, and I'm sure a lot of listeners probably have some horror stories as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh goodness. Well, on this journey that you're on now, and being able to build your own company, what have been some really unexpected positives that have come up over the course of this recent journey?
Yeah, it's been so interesting. So I've spent the last 6 weeks just talking to people, both in my network and also meeting new people that might have connected or read one of my stories on LinkedIn. Um, and the ability to crowdsource and learn from others is amazing. So I do belong to a couple different professional organizations and consulting groups. And for me, it's been great to learn from others, kind of, how have they built their business? What, would they have done differently? Because it is kind of overwhelming, I think, to put on that hat and, or lots of hats, I guess I should say, to learn the business side of things, to market yourself, but also to do what you love doing, your core
Yeah.
work. So I'm just really trying to enjoy the journey. But for me, it's really been connecting with people and connecting other people.
Yeah. I love that. And it is so funny. You can just reach out to a random stranger on LinkedIn who's doing something similar, and people are willing to hop on the phone and just even chat for 10 minutes just so you can brainstorm. Like there's such that openness and willingness, I feel.
I feel it too. And I think it's so great that people are willing to help one another. I mean, what other better way to build community? And again, like a lot of folks that have read articles or commented, just kind of wrote me some very personal, like I feel the same way that you spoke
Mm.
about or you wrote about, rather. It's been really great meeting these people, even though it's been virtually. And I feel like I've made friends this way too, which has been very rewarding.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Any unexpected challenges or any challenges that you're going through that seem like maybe surprising that you have to go through it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that far in yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like, there's highs and lows, right? Like, when I first started out, I'm like, oh my goodness, I, was at a conference, and it was this manufacturing summit that I was speaking
Yeah.
at. And yeah, I had to introduce myself, and who are you with? I'm with myself. It's
Yeah.
just a little bit frightening, but also kind of like, oh my goodness, I own my own business, like an aha moment at the same time. So it's been interesting to, for all this time have the kind of backing of a logo and a company and a team, and really kind of put the pieces together to figure out how are you going to move forward differently, because you don't have the same resources that you used to, or at least I didn't when I was in the corporate environment. And it's not a bad thing. I definitely have had some help along the way, with my daughters, my graphic designer, my youngest, and she's also kind of tech support for me too, and just other friends that, like I mentioned, my other friend built me a website who was in marketing. So I'm so grateful for the people that kind of have stepped up and offered to help, or I have a mentor from one of the other groups that I belong to, as a similar business to me out west. So it's been good.
That's awesome. And I can attest to having children help you because I'm looking across the table at my child. And I couldn't do it without him. So,
Love it.
oh goodness. Well, let's talk about your articles that you write on LinkedIn. I've read a few of them. I love it, and I know when we first chatted, I was like, I love the series name. So, Big Girls Panties Diary, and again, love it and love the name, and it's so catchy. You want to share a little bit about how that came to be and a little bit about
Sure.
the article?
Yeah, I would love to. So last spring, I was speaking at a change management conference, and I had a handout to go with my session. It was about finding your voice. And I didn't have a website at that time. I didn't have any place to post the handout. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll just write an article, and then I'll be able to attach the handout to the article. And as the article came out, it was a story, and it was kind of the story behind the presentation that I was giving around finding your voice. So my oldest daughter is 17, and she's been suffering from long COVID for the last 4 years, and she's seen over 45 doctors. She's missed um, several months of her freshman, sophomore, and junior years, and just kind of trying to diagnose the symptoms. We've had a journey just trying to get the right medical team. And it caused me to have a lot of conversations that were difficult conversations, because we were kind of in uncharted territory with doctors, with school districts. So I found myself having difficult conversations kind of in my personal life as well as in my professional life. As I had grown in my career, the more senior you became, the more politically savvy you need to become, and just navigating, kind of some very difficult conversations. So that's what I submitted. They grabbed onto it. And then the panty part was from a boss that I had many years ago, who was probably one of the best bosses I ever had, strong female leader. And I remember she was going through some challenging times having these political conversations. And she's like, oh, today I got to put on my big girl panties, and we're going to talk about whatever XYZ. And it just really stuck with me. And this was years ago. I mean, we're talking like 15 years ago. So that was the title I landed on. I remember kind of running it by a few friends. I had friends who were like, you can't say panties on LinkedIn. And I had others like, I love it. So I really had this mixed reaction. At one point, I tried to like rename it, and I decided I needed to authentically be myself, and I put it out there. And it's gotten some good reviews, but I also had some folks that say they find it offensive, but they love the article. So maybe not for everybody, but I think it suits me well.
I will personally, I think if people are talking about it and the title brings them in, you know, as long they can like the content. I think the fact is you're talking about things that need to be talked about. I read the one about the grief of people who are left behind after a layoff, and I thought that was just, you did such a great job at bringing the voices forward from that perspective. It was absolutely amazing. And I'm glad that you have a title that may cause some to pause, because I think that's where you get the attention. And again, the content is just superb. So you should be proud of that. And, but they don't like the title, too bad. They can whiz past it and read the content.
Yeah, it's funny. At one point, I actually wrote an article about that. If it's not for you, it's not for you. And that's
Yeah.
okay, right? No, it's interesting because I'd been writing corporate speak for like 25 years, but
Yeah.
when I put pen to paper, not literally, I guess I'm typing, but it was interesting to see what came out from a
Yeah.
creative side, and I didn't realize how much I enjoyed writing. It was very therapeutic for me, and especially as my daughter has been going through this journey of uncertainty herself. But I asked two questions every day, and that really is where my articles come from. It's, what's upsetting me, what's making me angry, and the other is, what did I learn today? And those are kind of a springboard into just me pouring my heart out and being kind of vulnerable with a little bit of humor, a little bit of sass, hopefully. But yeah, that's kind of where all the articles have come from. And sometimes I go back to the same topic several times. It really just depends, or I'll write a part two. But I really love that. I think that people are helped by some of the things that I'm writing. That's really giving me a lot of purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it is a great augmentation to the work that you're doing for organizations, because you're still out there and understanding what people are feeling. And so you can bring those into the articles as well. And so I think the work that you're doing through your consultancy and your writing together just marry very well. And you can continue to really hit upon the pulse of the issues that people are feeling in corporate.
Yeah, thank you. Most recently, I've been writing a lot around kind of trust, and what does that look like, and how does it look in the form of different generations in the workforce, and how does that foundational trust help you with change and kind of moving through change? Because if you don't have that trust, then how can you expect to layer difficult change on top of it?
Yeah. It's so funny. I had a client call late this afternoon, and we had put in a new telephony system, and the call centers, there's such a lack of trust just within the system itself, that there's a lack of we're telling them the truth for everything, but there's such a lack of trust because they have a lack of trust in the system that in what they're seeing. So, I think even in projects and in corporate, you've just building trust, not just at the people level, but at our systems and at what,
Yeah.
the data and things like that. So I just think it's so important. And that's a very relevant topic right now, given just where we are in the state of the world.
For sure. Yeah. I think about when you said kind of things not working right. So
Uh,
when people go or have a change, they go through this emotional journey, and it really it's called the Fisher model. There's many change management frameworks, and that's one of them. But it it's kind of like mirrored over the seven stages of grief, quite honestly, and kind of talks
mm,
about as a change unfolds, sometimes people are happy at the beginning, they're excited for change, they're ready for it, and then they kind of slide slowly down this roller coaster, with the fear setting in of their what if
yeah,
brain, and the brain goes to the worst possible place, and that presents itself with fear and anger, and that's where kind of some of the resistance comes in. And then sometimes they can get into what's called this valley of despair, and they don't come out of it because they don't see kind of where everything is going. And but if they do, they can kind of climb up the other side of the mountain and get to that acceptance. But when something happens to erode the trust, they can start all the way back at the beginning. So that's why I think trust is so important when you're talking about change.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I love it. I could talk to you all day. I think I think the work that you do is fascinating. I think you're just lovely, and I love the work that you're bringing forward, and it's needed. And so I just think that's great. What's one thing that you want our listeners to know about yourself and the company as we kind of wind down the conversation?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to figure it out like everybody else. And I guess, if you have folks out there that are kind of mid-career, um, I remember kind of being in that situation and really having these aspirations to be a senior level of leadership, right? And then kind of spending most of my career trying to get to that level. I guess the message that I would send is that it doesn't always look like you thought it would, but that's not a bad thing, right? And I tend to be very just vulnerable in kind of the way I speak, but as also very truth telling in the information. So one thing that I guess I'd like you to know about me is I'm just really honest when it comes to you know, giving advice, whether that be professional advice or personal advice.
No, I love that, and that it comes through in the conversation for sure. Well, is there anything that we can do here at Powered by Authenticity to help?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Thanks so much for asking, Em. I think it's amazing that you're creating a space for people to be their authentic self and that you have created this community of listeners. So I think that in and of itself is incredible. Um, I would love for people, if they're interested in what we spoke of today, to take a look at the articles that I've written. I'm happy to connect and talk with people. But I feel like I'm just hoping in the future that people that have this information or have heard our conversation today feel less alone and more empowered by some of the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And we will put links to all of it in our show notes as well as to your website as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being here. I love this conversation, and again, I'll say it. I think change management is something that often is not brought into enough, especially with large projects. There's just such a piece of it, and outside of projects, just for organizational change and how that's going to be received. Especially when there's a shift in org structure and things of that nature. Remembering that it really impacts the people. And I think, from our organization's perspective, we need to keep those people in mind first because they're the ones out there doing the really hard things.
For sure. I always say organizational change is a series of individual changes. And to do that, you have to understand individual change, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you hopping on.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, and I'm actually recording in our Genesee County Chamber offices tonight.
Very cool.
So I don't know have you thought about joining your local chamber?
It's so funny. I have a list that's at the top of my list. So absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. I didn't realize the resources that came with being a chamber member, and it's funny. For tonight, I was like, I wanted to go someplace different and someplace fun to record. And so I called up. I sent an email to our chamber president, and here we are. So and they do HR training and workshops, and actually a workshop on change management would be actually a really good value add to any chamber.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. Well, so we thank our Genesee County Chamber for hosting us tonight. And Producer Ken, thanks for being here.
You got it.
Producer Ken's in charge of cooking Thanksgiving dinner.
Thank you, Producer Ken.
Now, are you cooking on Thursday, Julie?
I am not. I'm in charge of some side dishes. I know you'd appreciate that. And my girls are bakers, so they're making a gluten-free pineapple cake.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I'm in charge of charcuterie and dessert.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. So we also have some gluten issues in the family. So I was thinking about apple crisp. Maybe some sort of trifle or something. We'll figure it out.
And not everyone knows it, but everything they're getting this year that is, a main or a side that I'm making is all gluten-free to start with, because last year everybody ate up all of the gluten-free stuffing before they ever even saw the pan of regular. So I figure if the stuffing was a pass, if the stuffing is a pass, everybody can eat everything else.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, Julie, we hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And truly, I really appreciate you being here, sharing your story, sharing the work that you're doing, both with your articles, which again are fantastic, as well as the work that you're doing in change management, which is also fantastic. And both are so needed. authentic storytelling and sharing what people are feeling and what you're seeing, as well as making sure that the impacts to people when it comes to organizational change are well thought out. So thank you for doing the work that you're doing, and really thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. We hope you have a really great night.
You too.